Hello and welcome to this recorded presentation of the gas work log update for the 9074, the 9189, the 6189 and the 6014. Why has the logbook had to change? EU Skills set the standard and the strategy for assessment Common Assessment Strategy. The Common Assessment Strategy is a way of standardising industry, and all awarding organisations must adhere to the document. This was updated in 2025 and has driven the changes to the logbook. This includes what must be assessed through performance in the workplace, how much simulated evidence can be produced, the range of work and appliances that need to be covered, and what needs to be observed. This should be a positive change as it brings more flexibility to candidates when collecting evidence from site. The link below can be accessed through the PDF version of this presentation. Where can I find the new logbook? The logbook fits with the rest of the assessment material on the relevant web page for the qualification. The exemplar shows the 9074 assessment documents. Alternatively, you can find the logbook in the assessment documents on the web pages for the 6014, the 6189 and the 9189. The link on screen can be accessed using the PDF version of this presentation. Let's take a look at what's changed in the gas work log. Roles and responsibilities remain the same. The principal assessor must be occupationally competent in the sector qualification being assessed, assessor qualified and registered with the centre, fully conversant with the assessments and subject to review by an IQA. Expert observer must be occupationally competent, suitably experienced, trained and registered with the centre. Training for the observer must include the requirements of assessment and the completion of related direct observation documentation. Training must be documented and recorded within quality assurance documentation and be subject to review by an IQA. Training details are also recorded in the logbook. Expert observers will be subject to the same level internal quality assurance processes as assessors. Expert observers must demonstrate proof of gas safe registration. Direct observations must be carried out by a principal assessor or expert observer. Where direct observation is carried out by an expert observer, the observation documentation must be countersigned by the principal assessor and subject to enhanced quality assurance. The principal assessor can carry out all of the observations, but let's say the centre has restrictions on staff availability. An expert observer can be trained up from industry. This hasn't changed from the previous version of the logbook. Expert witness. Expert witnesses are required to sign candidate evidence such as reflective accounts, witness testimonies, and supporting documents to authenticate and ensure validity. Expert witnesses must be occupationally competent and have suitable industry experience. Expert witnesses must demonstrate proof of gas safe registration. Mentors. A mentor must be an occupationally competent person from industry to support the candidate. Definitions of evidence and assessment codes remain the same. There are several definitions used when providing evidence for proving competence, such as DO, direct observation. Using reports contained in the work log, these could be either DOS, directly observed real-life activity on site, DOC, directly observed simulated realistic activity in centre, RA, reflective account, using documents contained within the logbook. These could be either RAS, reflective account site from site with supporting evidence, or RAC, reflective account centre from simulated realistic centre activity with supporting evidence. All recording forms for the collection of evidence are available in the work log. All forms are colour-coded. Completing the assessment table tracker is an important part of the process. The assessment codes are used to complete the assessment tracker. It's really important you work with your assessor to complete this regularly. As the tracker assessment table progresses, it can be used to discuss with your assessor which simulations may be required to support completion of the logbook. There is an exemplar on page 10 of the GAS work log. This is only an exemplar, and every tracker assessment table will look different. The key to using this is ensuring the minimum amount of jobs from site are achieved when collecting evidence. All evidence can come from site if available. The simulations are only available for learners who cannot naturally collect the evidence from site. Obviously, the more evidence that comes from site benefits the centre, as no resources for simulation are required. The range must be met across the jobs which are completed. These can always be highlighted or ticked off as you work through your jobs to ensure that they are met when all the jobs are complete. Extra job sheets can be inserted if required to meet the minimum range requirements. From the range, assessments to include installation of appliance, full service of an appliance, fault find on appliance, and completion of associated documentation. From a range, a freestanding cooker, a hob, a flexible connection, and a rigid connection. Assessment tables 1 to 6 have changed. The main change is there is now a choice of primary or secondary appliance types for the apprenticeship. When you first start the logbook, you should choose a primary appliance type from boilers, cookers, and fires. Candidates will obviously choose the primary appliance as the one most available in the workplace. The assessor can discuss this with the candidate when inducting them into the portfolio. The other two will then be classed as secondary appliance types. These can have more evidence from activities undertaken in simulated, realistic working environments. There is now 2 assessment table trackers for each appliance in the logbook, one primary and one secondary. Only one of the assessment table trackers needs completing, either primary or secondary for each appliance. The other one can be disregarded or removed. This is to ensure more flexibility is included into the logbook to enable candidates to obtain evidence across appliances they may not come across frequently in the workplace. Here's an example of how this could work in practice. Candidates will obviously choose the primary appliance as the one most available in the workplace. The assessor can discuss this with the candidate when inducting them into the portfolio and remove or cross out sheets as required. This slide is easier to understand when you have the logbook downloaded in front of you. If you select Install, Service and Fault Find domestic gas cookers, tumble dryers and leisure appliances as your primary appliance type, you must provide evidence to meet the following assessment tables. Table 1. Primary appliance type. Install, service and fault find domestic gas cookers, tumble dryers and leisure appliances, cookers. Table 4. Secondary appliance type. Install, service fault find and relight safety check domestic gas space heating appliances, fires. Table 6. Secondary appliance type. Install, service fault find and relight safety check gas water heating and wet central heating appliances, boilers. The secondary assessment table tracker sheets for cookers and the primary appliance assessment tracker table sheets for fires and boilers would not be needed and could be removed or disregarded. Differences between a primary and secondary appliance choice. These are the new requirements set by EU Skills. So basically you fill in either a primary or secondary appliance assessment table tracker for each appliance. The differences are, both still require 5 installs, but if you compare assessments 3 and 4, more simulation is allowed in centre for the secondary appliance. For primary appliances, 5 services are required. For secondary appliances, this can either be a service or fault find, and more simulation is allowed in centre. For primary appliances, evidence of fault finding 4 or 5 times is required. For secondary appliances, this can be a safety check and relight of the appliance. For assessment 5, the NA not applicable can be used in any of the boxes to give more flexibility to employers who may install or service more day-to-day. Centres will need to also look at the resources they have to ensure that they can make the best of the opportunities for simulation. Obviously, it makes sense to have available the appliances which are less common from the range to be used for simulation. I would suggest printing 2 pages off and comparing these. It does help to get your head around things when delivering to candidates. Recording forms have been updated. A new form for relight and safety check, where others have been streamlined. Common questions. Why is this logbook not used for 9289? The on-programme qualification does not lead to gas safe registration, so the employee group used different requirements. Will this logbook be used for 9075? Yes, but we will see the inclusion of an electrical safety and wiring task to meet the requirements for the apprenticeship standard. Can existing learners transfer evidence into the new logbook? Yes, this will make the collection of evidence easier to achieve as they can use the secondary appliance facility. Do new learners have to use this logbook? The new standards were introduced in 2025. The current logbook for 9074, for example, still meets the requirements, but the candidates will be collating more evidence from site if they're using a pathway with multiple appliances. Do centres have to use this logbook? No. The templates are a free resource, but if centres develop their own, it will still have to meet the requirements of the assessment tables and trackers at the front of each section. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. I hope you found the information useful. Should you require any further information, please feel free to contact the Building Services team at City & Guilds.